welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Rachelle K, and I am here with my child too, and we have a fabulous guest, Michael Neal. He has been in law enforcement for 29 years, and we're just going to change some things this episode, and we're going to talk about some much needed information. So I'm going to let him introduce himself. We're going to chop it up for a little while. You guys stay tuned, pay attention, and listen. There's something in it for you.
Good day for those who may watch this. I pray that your day, your life is filled with peace. The greatest gift and wish that we can give anyone is the wish of peace. My name is Michael Neal. I'm born and raised Chicagoan. I'm matriculated from the Cabrini Green area. I didn't leave that area until I graduated from high school and went to the military. Spent 3 years in the military, came home. And when I came home, I went back to what I was familiar with, and that was the streets. In it, I was fortunate to meet a woman that was 13 years my senior, who benefited from what the fruits of the labor of the streets gave me, however, was planting seeds to get me out. And so I thank that woman, and I had the ability to play basketball well. And in that, it created brotherhood with brothers. And one day we would go home after basketball, we would get our beers and we would chop it up and all that stuff. And he say, "Hey man, won't you come take this police test with me?" In the city of Harvey. I had just moved out in Harvey to escape the lifestyle that I was in. And I said, man, my life has been 360 degrees opposite of law enforcement. Where I grew up at, crime ridden, all that. My heroes was pimp hustlers and players. I don't want to be no police. My interactions with police were negative. Even though the interactions that they were interacting with me, it was just basically Jim Crow laws. See a group of young black folks and put them on a car. Belittle, lower you, put you on the ground, put your face on the ground. And so not only my experience, but the grooming in my mind was a disdain for the police. So I said, "Nah, brother, I ain't gonna do that." Well, this brother was a very shy brother. He said, "Man, if you don't come take this test with me, I won't take it." And I'm fast tracking it, but this is something that he really wanted to do. So I went and took the test with him, not desirous of the job, but for support. I ended up passing. He failed. All through the interview process, I was totally authentic. I thought that would discredit me, but they loved my honesty about who I was, how I felt about the police, how I even got to that point of the interview. And they hired me because of my honesty. And because of that, I did 29 years in law enforcement. The first 6 years I did as a patrol officer. Then I was promoted to supervisor over the bike patrol unit, which was new concept in law enforcement. I then found something that touched my heart. I was promoted to the COPS program, community officer policing. This is where I had the opportunity to bridge the gap between the community, police, businesses, and the faith-based community. I felt at home. I was creating block clubs. And then I created something that was called the Citywide Block Club, where all the block club presidents got together and they communicated what was going on in their uh, particular block, things that would help the other block, neighborhood watches, lighting, uh, for a lack of better words, um, how they kept their block as far as being groomed, um, looking out for each other when one would go on vacation and looking out for the houses and getting to know each other and who belongs on the block. I found my ministry in that. But nevertheless, there was a need, there was a shortage in general investigations. So I was pulled out of the cops program. And in the cops program, I also had the privilege and honor of running the badge program, which we had the children from the summertime after they got out of school. We had them from the whole summer, uh, every day for 5 days out of the week. We fed them. We had activities. Once a week, we would go on a trip. And all the people that were working for this program were either majority was officers. And so that gave a different perspective of how the community and the young folks felt with officers and teachers. So we had curriculum for them to do, so that we know that most of them struggled in school during school year. That was one of the best periods of my life. But nevertheless, I'm trying to fast track this history, this bio, so that we can get to the questions. There was a shortage in general investigations, and so they needed me to come out of the program and work general investigations. I learned another love for my people, um, by seeing different crimes, how it affected both the victim and offender. Um, I seen a level of meticulous work that would need to be to make a victim's family, I wouldn't say satisfied, but give them some form of justice. After a while, I took the sergeant test. And at the same time, when I became the sergeant, I was the lead investigator. I became the commander over the investigation unit. From there, uh, I became the commander over the internal affairs. Now, this is investigating officers and their conduct. All these, the next step was I became the deputy chief of operations over the whole police department.
That's a lot. That's a lot. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you. I really am. So what I want to do is I want to ask you some questions that I prepared, and I just kind of want you to help me out with some answers. And if you want to give more than just the answer, then that's fine because we're going to try to dissect some things here. So, did you work on homicides?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And when you worked on homicides, what was the grief like for the family?
Just like a fingerprint, no
Everything
two
different.
no two situations are identical. And so different family members, they go through one anger. You get a lot of, especially with in our communities. Initially, we struggled with people cooperating. One, there was a fear of being seen as a snitch, but then there was another mindset that people said, I'm gonna get my lick back.
Hmm.
You wasn't there, law enforcement, to protect mine. So I'm going to take the matters in my hand and try to get my lick back. I don't watch people went from grieving and mad at law enforcement to actually mad at each other. All that hurt and pain. Well, you wasn't there for him, and if you was there for him, and this will happen, and blah blah blah. And so it's a lot of finger pointing because people don't know how to handle grief. I'm
Mm-hmm.
angry. I need to be able to point my anger somewhere else outside of me. Um, you see all type of things. The most traumatic thing that we see that we were not giving the mental capability to handle. When you see a child, and I'm talking about infant to toddler, murdered, drowned in a by a mother in a bathtub, skin peeled off, and the family knew that this person had mental issues, but nobody stepped in to protect the child, knowing that she had this child with this mental issues. When you see an old person die of violence, not a natural death, of violence, oftentimes, not all the times, your suspect is close. Family member, friend, relationships, domestics. The suspect is very close. And so there's a lot of mixed emotions and there's a lot of anger and there's a lot of finger pointing. And the truth about the matter is many of us don't go see mental health specialists. We've been
Mm-hmm.
taught to go along to get along. We have normalized traumatic events in our life to where somewhat sometimes we become numb until
Mm-hmm.
it knocks on our door.
Yep, that's true.
So the grief process, it varies from the person. It varies from house to house. It varies on the house morals, the house
Mm-hmm.
values, right? A person who goes to faith-based institutions and their family go grieve a little bit different from a person that their house is filled with criminal activity, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
These these people have the mindset, some of them, that you live by the sword, you die by the sword. I was expecting it. But the person who devoted themselves to serving God when tragedy hit them is mind blowing because I've been a good, faithful servant. I've been trying to get my family and my family blessed, and this happened to one of my loved ones. So the grieving process is different based upon grooming, environment, nurture.
Yes, I would agree. And I would also agree that it's like a fingerprint. Everybody does grieve different because every situation is different and every relationship is different. So the relationship that I may have with my mom may be a different relationship than what you have with your mom. And so therefore the grieving would never actually be the same. And the goal is to just try to not figure it out, but just try to navigate through it. Like just try to understand that death comes, it comes. And we have to mentally try to get ourselves prepared because we always say that little saying that we don't know what tomorrow's going to bring, and we don't. As a matter of fact, we don't know what the next few minutes are going to bring. We hope that, we sustain, we hope that we have a long life here, but the reality of that is that some will and some won't. So I'm going to ask you another question because we're talking about grief. I want to ask you, as a police chief or a police officer, whatever situation you found yourself in those 29 years, did did does police ever offer like something for grief? Do they go back and visit? Do they maybe seek those people out? Do they begin relationships with people, or all of that is like a no, we can't do any of that? Do you direct them to counseling? Do you do, as a police officer, not as a paramedic or anything, but actually as a police officer, do you guys help in any way with the grieving process or the process of um, going through this?
So, as my tenure as an administrator, and remember the relationships I built from the COPS
Mm-hmm.
program with the faith-based community,
Mm-hmm.
uh, under the instruction of my boss at that time, we created a chaplain program.
Okay.
And so, with the chaplain program, anytime we had a situation that dealt with loss, I would reach out to the chaplains
Okay.
and dispatch them to that family,
Okay.
right? And offer whatever they can in the form of consoling,
Okay.
um, in that manner. Now, every law enforcement community that does not do that, that was my recollection of what I did. But in the truth, Rachelle, I had no idea of the impact of what I was doing. Something felt right. So I'm not getting ready to sit up here and tell you that I was Einstein and I knew what I was doing. God was directing me to do certain things that
Mm-hmm.
understanding came later.
Mm-hmm.
And
I get it.
so, um, but yes, um, and it was a skillful art, even with the pastors. I have been a member of the Nation of Islam. Sometimes there are certain people when they initially lose somebody, they don't want to hear nothing about God,
Mm-hmm.
because if God was there, they would have protected. Now, with consistency and offering of the service, and when you're ready to talk, yeah, some of those people may reach out. Uh, but that was what's offered from what under my tenure as far as the
Okay.
grieving process, because even sometimes with law enforcement, the strained relationship between the citizens and the law enforcement, even if your heart goes out to them, they still may see you as enemy. And so
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you have to put somebody in there who they don't see as enemy, because the ultimate goal is to offer services to help them with the process of getting through their loss.
With seeing so many tragedies and with saying that most of the time it's someone that you know, as an officer, do you automatically just go when you get the call and you guys come in to investigate? Do you feel like whoever is there, like they're automatically a suspect?
That's a good question. And I'm trying to let you now into the psyche of law enforcement. There's several different tiers. The primary officer, the responding officer, these are our officers in a uniform. Their job initially is to get there, try to maintain or restore peace. They're the first responders. At the same time, until the follow-up investigator gets there, the detectives, they have to maintain the crime scene. They're going into a situation totally blind. They're learning as they go the who, what, why, when, and where. Well, the where is kind of obvious, the location. And it can be different. There has
Mm-hmm.
been crimes whereas this is where we found the body, but the crime happened across town.
Mm-hmm.
But they have to ask these questions now. They have to secure witnesses now. Most people don't understand that to preserve the integrity of the case, the witnesses have to be separated immediately
Okay.
because your account and your account may be authentic, but once you start talking to one another, now you're cross contaminating. Now it's not authentic no more. You're inserting what another person told you,
Right. Okay. I
and
get it.
and and so you have to separate that. And most people don't understand that separation. And it's not that you're a suspect, but you want to give the family justice and certain tools. It seems insensitive, but in order to give the family justice, you have to follow a certain protocol, and that's separating of the witnesses. Now, have you found out that sometimes the witness becomes the suspect? Yes. We were taught long time ago when I took 40-hour homicide investigation class. The first thing you want to do when you get on the scene is take a picture of the people and the cars. Your suspect may still be on the scene. Your suspect vehicle may still be on the scene. And so I'm trying to give justice to your question. Yes, it becomes difficult on one level, but then the primary investigator, which is your officer, has to pass on his information to the follow-up investigator. Now, this is the more skilled. This is the person who has more time. What most people don't understand with the follow-up investigator, there's a list of things that the state's attorney wants to have because they want to go in to be able to prove their case.
Okay.
They have to have these things before they get what they call felony approval of the charges. Now, remember, we live in America. There's a such thing as double jeopardy. If you prematurely charge someone with a crime with all the evidence, if you
Mm-hmm.
lose that, if you lose the case, and you might absolutely have the right person, they can never be tried again for that crime. It's called double jeopardy. And so,
Mm-hmm.
on one end, as law enforcement, we get frustrated because sometimes we believe that the state's attorney is too meticulous. You want to open and shut case. You basically want a confession with a videotape and all this stuff. And crime, solving crime just don't work like that. But we also understand on their side, they want to be able to say that I'm going to give this family the best of my service of prosecution, and evidence is needed to help support the prosecution. Let me tell you this one
Yes.
last thing, Rachelle.
Go ahead.
Rachelle, in our community, we often know exactly what happened. Sometimes people communicate that with law enforcement, sometimes they don't. But even with us, we know what happened. It ain't what we know, it's how we prove it. What evidence support what we know? What witnesses are gonna come forward and be able to testify to what they witnessed? All these things have to line up to give justice to the victims of the family of the victims. And so, with those different layers of investigations, uh, and sometimes the preliminary officer and the investigator officer see things differently. The
Mm-hmm. I
primary
can see that.
officer, his job is to be totally reactionary because he has to restore peace. He has to, if medical assistance not available, he has to render some form of medical aid. Um, Even if the medical aid is calling for medical assistance and keeping everybody away, right? He's in the thick
Mm-hmm.
of it. He doesn't have the luxury when a follow-up investigator, detectives come in and the situation is now contained. and now you can start doing your thing.
So what do you think about all of this gun violence? So as far as like people being able to carry guns, in my mind, I feel like um some people don't have enough experience with guns. And so therefore they just get them and they think you just pick them up and you just shoot when, people go to range and people learn how to shoot, just like learning how to cook. So what do you think about like the gun laws and what do you think about the gun violence in our communities?
Well, when you talk about possessions of guns in our community, for our people who are seniors, or they ain't necessarily got to be seniors, but the responsible people in our community, I believe in the right to bear arms. However, when you get somebody that's 21 years old and we study the climate and how music is glorifying violence, they glorify I shot somebody with this chopper. Um, and now you got this guy coupled with his buddy mixed with pills, alcohol, drugs, women, and they're trying to impress one another. You get some of these guys with concealed carry that are buying guns and selling to their friends. Or they the guy who, because they got concealed carry, everywhere they going, they carry everybody gun.
Oh,
The
wow.
mature, the maturity level has dissipated, in my humble opinion, is because we lost the village concept. And when we had the village concept, it's not that we didn't have uh, violence, but we felt each other's pain. We
Okay.
knew each other. We are so disjointed that we don't know each other, and it becomes easy for you to harm somebody else and then justify your mind that they had it coming. And so, what I learned in the badge program, even the most troubled kid, let me change that. Kid is language that's justified devious billy. The most troubled child will respond to care and concern. When you show that child care and concern, you start to disarm them. Most of our youth don't feel care and concern. And so it's easy to take a life because their life wasn't valued by somebody with care and concern. So
Right.
why would I care about somebody else? And because they don't know this, and on so many levels, as we point the finger at them, we failed them. We
Yeah,
move out of
I
the
get that.
we move out the neighborhoods, we
Hmm.
move into the
I get it.
suburbs,
Hmm.
and we so disunited that we don't pour back into our youth. And now we have I'm gonna take care of my mentality, forget yours, but yours is hanging out with mine.
Hmm. And so let me talk about that a little bit. So the My Child Too, the reason that that's my podcast name is because it's my child too. So every child belongs to all of us. Like it does take a village. Like we have to become responsible. And I know it's hard because it's been times where I have interacted with children and I'll just be like, you know what, y'all just go ahead because I don't know who raised you. But at the end of the day, we still have to get involved. Um, my stepdad, um, he was the block president, and while he was the block president, we had a lot of different people on our block, but he kind of kept things together. And then it became a point where we started having a lot of murders on our block. Um, and just a lot going on in the neighborhood. But that's been majority of my life. And so I wanted to ask you as well, like because you go through life in Chicago and then, you're a kid and you can play outside, but then it becomes a point where you don't want your kids to play outside because it's dangerous, or you don't want them sitting on the front porch, go sit in the back. But now people are coming in your backyard. So I wanted to ask you, with being on the force for 29 years, have you witnessed the difference? Do you think it was better back in the day, or it was really just the same, just more different crimes, not so much murder? Or do you feel like the crimes are the same, or do you feel like they have lessened? I mean, and I'm gonna look at statistics a little bit later on, but tell me, what do you think, just based on Chicago, just based on any area in Chicago? Because Chicago, people feel like they're afraid of Chicago. And to be honest, I don't feel there's a reason to be really afraid. I feel like if you just, not necessarily stay to yourself, but stay out of the way of trouble, like you'll be good. So, at one point I was living in Atlanta and I was hearing all these things on the news about how Chicago was so bad and this and that. And when I went back to Chicago, I was kind of like fearful, like what it's gonna be like. But when I got there, my friends were still sitting on the porch, people were still walking to the store, people were still hanging out at the White Castle. Nothing had really changed because they're in that environment. And is the news correct? So go back to my question. What do you think? Has it gotten better? Has it gotten worse? Maybe in some areas? Just give me some enlightenment on that.
You asked such a profound question, and I hope my answer give your question justice. In my humble opinion, it has absolutely gotten worse. There were some things in old school policing that needed to be tweaked. Absolutely. Right? The profiling was off the chain. Uh, the police brutality was higher. Those are the things that needed to be addressed. But in this day and age, the most dangerous thing for in law enforcement is a politician.